Uh, so we're gonna discuss some fallout and the controversy that just won't go away. Um, so today, Maple Leafs locker cleanout, which means we get all the news on what's going on with the Leafs. Kyle Dubas says Mitch Marner being signed is priority one, and he wants it done before July 1st. I think he's learned from the Willie Nylander situation. We'll see how much he's learned and what kind of contract Marner gets. I'm thinking it's going to be for a lot of money. I think it's going to be like rolling around it on the bed kind of money for Marner. Zach Hyman apparently has a torn ACL. So when we see these guys playing in the playoffs, he didn't seem to make much of an effort. He's not very good. These guys play through some pretty wicked injuries. Nothing but respect for NHL players in the playoffs. Be interesting to see what Gardner was fighting with too, because Gardner was hurt and was playing because, according to Mike Babcock, there wasn't anybody in the depths in depth to actually make it worth taking him out of the lineup, which is probably why Elzhiganov is reportedly returning to the KHL next year. And that doesn't speak well either for guys like Calle Rosen. If you're going to put in Jake Gardner, who's at maybe 60, 70%, and say he at 60% is better than you at 100%, that's not great. So either it means that Babcock gets his way and they change the lineup, or something happens between Babcock and Dubas this summer. Willie Nylander apparently now regrets holding out. Who knew? This is the thing. When you hold out into the middle of the season, it's hard to get up to speed with everybody else because they've been playing games that matter since October. And I don't care how much you're skating overseas or playing games of scrimmage with the Pee Wee team in Sweden or over in Denmark and having fun. Like, whatever you're doing, and I'm just throwing those out there, it's not what he was doing, but it's not the same. So, Nylander now says he's going to make improvements in the offseason, and Leaf fans who were overjoyed at the contract when he signed it, some of those people are the same ones now saying, trade him. And I don't think at the production that he had this year, I don't think he has enough trade value to warrant trading him. Kadri says it won't happen again. Kadri said it was a boneheaded move on his part when he went after Jake DeBrusk. And it definitely was a part of this series turning. That being said, they were up 3-2 without Kadri. And Game 6, I didn't think that it was necessarily of lack of Kadri that caused that series to turn in Boston's favor. The interesting thing to me is, there's a lot of comments getting thrown around about this guy's plays last game as a Leaf, that guy has, this guy's, Babcock's out. Sid Sixero tweeted after Game 7, Mike Babcock coached his last game as Maple Leafs coach. There's been a lot of pushback against that since he said it, but there are other people who feel that way. And it's going to be very interesting to see. Now, what's come out since then as well is Babcock doesn't have an out clause, meaning he can't quit. He doesn't have an out clause in his contract. He's under contract. He can't just quit. He can't without giving up a ton of money. And I don't think anybody wants to give up a ton of money. Now, moving on from the Leafs. Joe Pavelski is highly unlikely for Game 1. And Peter DeBoer is being kind of standard playoffs vague about it, but when said, so is it a concussion, he said, I think you can read between the lines. Yeah. He said that hit could have broken his skull. Or fractured break. So they're very glad that he's not more hurt than he was. Now, on a related note, Dan O'Halloran and Eric Furlat will not be officiating in the next round. And the National Hockey League has reportedly called George McPhee. I've seen more than one source on it now. Saying that the league called George McPhee and apologized. They apologized to the Vegas Golden Knights for what they felt was the wrong call. So for all these people that have come out and said they made the right call, this is stupid, why are we having this debate? That's a 5-minute major. That's a 5-minute major. The National Hockey League's head office themselves have punished the officials and stated that it's not a major and it shouldn't have happened that way to the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, for people who've said, well, this is Vegas' fault because they allowed 4 shorthanded goals, or four power play goals, I agree. For people who've pointed out that they allowed a shorthanded goal in Game 6 in overtime, I agree. Vegas choked this one big time, but that penalty definitely didn't help. And then just the way they unraveled after that just didn't help. But the National Hockey League has said this was the wrong call, and those officials will not be working the second round. And when we get in the midst of all this, we look at all the replays and, oh, isn't it terrible? I think the problem is what Jonathan Marchessault said, and apparently was said to other players as well. The referees didn't see what happened. They were not calling a penalty on the play, and then the four of them get together, and they decide it's 5 in a game on Eakin, who didn't cause what happened to happen directly. And again, I know, we all have this debate, right? The league has come out and said Eakin should not have been thrown out of the game, and it shouldn't have been a 5-minute penalty. So this is from the league now, and the referees who worked that game are being punished for it because they don't get paid if they don't work. And if they're not working round 2, they're not working conference finals, and they're not working the finals either. So when I see people saying, oh, that these officials should be punished, they do get punished. Absolutely. They don't work. If you don't do a good job consistently, you don't work. They tell you to go home. It's something you can't do to players, but it definitely happens to officials. And it, whether we agree or we disagree, this is what's happening. The officials will not work again, and the NHL has apologized to George McPhee and the Vegas Golden Knights for what happened. So let this mean that this never stops being a controversy. The controversy will live forever. That does cinch it. If the league had come out and said, no, it was the right call, and these officials were working the second round, this would eventually die down. Because this has happened, now it'll never die down. Ever. So for people who are saying, oh, Vegas shouldn't use that as an excuse, it's right on the board. Thatcher Demko signs a 2-year extension for the Vancouver Canucks, and I can't find a way to segue from one into the other, so I'm not even going to try. Demko signing a 2-year extension is fantastic. Makes $1.05 million next year and the year after. That's pretty good for the kid. Limited action, but he looked pretty darn good at the end of the year, so thumbs up for me on that one. For all of the slings and arrows get thrown at betting, honestly, I think he's done a good job building a good young team, and I'm really excited about next year. Nate Thompson's got a 1-year extension from Montreal due to the video I did yesterday where I wasn't sure he was going to back from Montreal. Clearly, Bergevin watched that video and said, oh, I forgot to sign Thompson, and went out and signed him, so you're welcome, Montreal. And PK Subban is in the news, and that's kind of a bit of a segue there, huh? Isn't it? I didn't even intend it that way. PK Subban wants to stay in Nashville, so coming out of Nashville's disappointing result against the Dallas Stars, some fingers being pointed at Matthias Ekholm, but Ekholm had a really strong season. Ellis certainly, but Subban didn't have a great regular season or great playoffs, so if you're looking for a top 4 defenseman who might be expendable, it's not Roman Josi either. So PK Subban would be the guy. And that $9 million cap hit, there certainly would be reason for David Poile to look at that cap hit and say, I think I understand why the Montreal Canadiens did what they did here. Now, as much as Montreal, I felt this was an okay, defendable deal at the time, and then it looked like it a year later had swung into the favor of Nashville big time. If Nashville wants to move on from Subban, Montreal wins the trade. So how does that work out? Or we can just decide they both lost or they both won or whatever we want to, right? Subban wants to stay in Nashville. He's being very vocal about, I want to be part of the solution. But if management and fans and media all decide that he's part of the problem, it might be hard for him to make the argument that he should stay. PK is a very interesting, polarizing figure in sports. I wouldn't mind him playing on any team that I cheer for. That being said, for $9 million a year, I might take a pass. Because what's shown in Nashville is I don't think he's a number 1 defenseman. I think he's probably a good number 3 or number 4. So for $9 million, you don't want a number 3 or a number 4. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as I'm sure everybody will. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video. And let's hope this is the last that we have to mention of the incident in the Vegas, San Jose. It's not, is it? It's never going to be over, is it? I don't think so. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.